Everybody, guess what? It's time for another segment of Toolbox Tuesday, and today I'm going to be hitting y'all off with a fun little coping skill, little activity that you can do while you urge surf or while you kind of pay attention to the dynamics of your cravings. So if y'all remember, this month or this series of Toolbox Tuesdays are dedicated to addiction and addiction recovery. Last week, I left off the discussion by saying that addiction is not an illness of the character. And I'm going to continue to say that, and I'm going to continue to try to get you all to believe that. Additionally, today, I'm going to talk about the stages of change. I'm going to talk about some of the self-help options that are out there for recovering from addiction or attaining sobriety. I'm also going to give y'all my 2 cents about what I think and how I feel and my clinical approaches to understanding and utilizing community-based offerings for addiction. So I will talk to you about SOS, which is the Secular Organization for Sobriety. I'll talk to you about NA, which is Narcotics Anonymous, and I'll talk to you about AA, which is Alcoholics Anonymous. And I'll talk about some of the values and limitations of utilizing those programs. So moving forward, today's skill is actually going to be a little fun one. What you see here is some petroleum jelly, some Jolly Rancher gummies. This is a, I don't want to call it, like a hot plate or whatever. And the activity technically requires a double boiler. However, I don't have one of those, and I'm from the hood, so I make do with what I got. So I got this skillet here with some water in it. And I have this little cup that I'm going to place in there so that the ingredients don't come into contact with too much heat and we can maintain our temperature requirements. And then I also got here this little plastic butter knife that I'm going to use to scoop out the ingredients and so on and so forth. So this will work out great. It's going to be a blast. The activity that we're going to be doing is we're going to make lip balm. This is a cute little activity. If you are in recovery and you got some kids that you want to spend some time with and you want to do an activity with, doing this activity is pretty cheap. The petroleum jelly, this Vaseline, was $1.25. These Jolly Ranchers were $1. If y'all got a stove at home or a hot plate or any of that thing, you can do it in the kitchen together. So yeah, and then I also have like this little tin to put my final product in. So this water looks like it's going pretty well, so I'm going to go ahead and put my little glass cup receptacle thingy here in the water. I'm going to turn this heat down just a little bit. I don't need it to be boiling, but I do need it to be hot. And I'm going to take these Jolly Rancher gummies. I'm only going to do the blue ones for today. Everyone but the blue one is coming out. Look at that. Alright, blue ones. That in there. That in there, that in there, that in there. Alright, so put in all 4 of the blue gummies. These leftover ones can be like different lip balms, or I can just like eat them, you know? But the point is to get these little gummies to start to melt in this, melt down a little bit. Now, while I'm waiting for that, I want to talk to you a little bit about the stages of change. Actually, no. Backtrack. Why is addiction not an illness of the character? Last time, I talked about how we get started through experimentation. There's an allure placed on substance use because a lot of times in the United States, we watch our parents do it, we watch our aunties and uncles do it, our older cousins do it. It's paired to celebrations like weddings, it's paired to celebrations like birthdays, it's paired to celebrations like getting a promotion, it's paired with grief like at funerals, it's paired with grief like with divorce, it's paired with grief like, oh crap, I just found out I've got a terminal illness that's coming to get me. Alcohol, a substance, cocaine, cannabis, anything, really. In the United States, we will substance right on up. Additionally, substance use is frequently used to treat other illnesses. So, clinically, we call it self-medicating. Can't sleep? Weed. Yeah, it's a thing. Can't sleep? Alcohol. Feel anxious? Weed. Worried about stuff? Weed. Gotta perform or outperform. Gotta be higher, gotta be better, gotta go further. Cocaine, stimulants. Substances appear to be the answer for almost anything that we struggle with here in the United States. And so it's really not at all a surprise when we find out that folks are reaching towards substances to do and feel better. Not at all a surprise. And when you think about it like that, it almost seems appropriate. It almost seems like the right choice. Have a problem? Take the medicine. The illness comes in at, like I said last week, when you start to take this substance, when your relationships are deteriorating, when it's no longer helping you perform, it's no longer helping you sleep, and you are doing absolutely horrid or uncharacteristic things to get a hold of your substance. Might be starting to steal, might be starting to beg, might be starting to sell things, might be lying. That's how you know a disease is really starting to set in. This looks different for different people because a lot of times different people have different resources that can help them put on a front, right? So people can be suffering from an addiction, but due to various privileges or access to various resources, we might not ever see them suffering, or we might not actually see the nature of their disease. Think about that for a second. This is why we do not judge people when they are working on their addiction. This is why we do not judge people when they say, hey, I don't want to be dealing with substances right now. Just think, how frequently or where do you see messaging and programming about substance use? We see it everywhere. We see it on buses. We see it on bus stops. We see it on billboards. We see it in commercials. We see it in ads on the internet. It's everywhere. All right. Our little gummies are getting a little melty here, but I am going to turn this up just a bit. Get that going a little bit faster. So these gummies are blueberry flavored. And what that means is that the lip balm that comes out of here is also going to be blueberry flavored. Woo! So when it comes to changing, recovering, putting the substance down, there are six stages to the change process. There's pre-contemplation, contemplation, preparation, action, maintenance, and lapse or relapse. So realistically speaking, we cannot say with 100% certainty or honesty that everybody relapses who wants to recover from substance use. Reason being, people's goals for recovery are different. Not everyone wants to get rid of substances forever or for good. Some people want to return to a place where they are functioning appropriately, where they are using substances appropriately, or non-problematically, or not in a diseased format. And so for people who have that goal, we do support them in helping them achieve that, and that means that substance use is a part of their recovery process. So in this case, there would be no lapse or relapse. But for people who are moving towards an abstinence-only approach, people who want to put it down for good, people who are recognizing that their lives remain unmanageable so long as substances are present, well, those people will absolutely see a lapse or a relapse as an ongoing part of the change process or the recovery process. Oh, this is so fun. I love it. Oh yeah, starting to get a little jelly. So, community-based organizations like SOS, Save Ourselves, or the Secular Organization for Recovery is an organization that exists that's meant to help people maintain sobriety. And their claim to efficiency is that they remove the necessity for a higher power. They appeal towards folks who are not in a place where they're acknowledging a higher power, a god, a goddess, a Holy Spirit, what have you. These people believe that recovery is something that they can do, that it is in their human power to do, and having to appeal to God is not only unnecessary, but sometimes unhelpful. And so without judging anyone, without putting any particular belief on anyone, realistically speaking, spiritual organizations have been known to lead to some trauma. People have been known to use the name of God to hurt other people. And so for some folks, that is not the key to recovery. And so for folks like that, SOS, Saving Ourselves, Secular Organization for Recovery. Narcotics Anonymous, older organization, very well known. This is for people who want to recover and abstain from any narcotic usage. And then Alcoholics Anonymous is a community organization, a community-based organization that's got several chapters as well, all across the United States and the world. This is dedicated specifically from the abstinence of alcohol. Many people have gotten to a place of recovery by utilizing these organizations. There's a sense of community there. There's a sense of pride in recovery there. There's people there that can help hold you accountable when you ask for it. There are people there who can check in on you to make sure you're doing what you want to do. There are people who have advanced in their recovery and are ready to hand that down to other people in these organizations. And that can absolutely be a wonderful thing. Speaking from a wellness perspective, speaking from a place of recovery, speaking from a place clinically, really, having a support network, I call it your Fab Five, is absolutely necessary in becoming well from any illness, right? If you are recovering from depression, who's your Fab Five? If you're recovering from anxiety or panic, who's your Fab Five? If you are just coming out of a psychotic episode and you're regaining balance in your life, who are your Fab Five? Social supports are essential for all forms of recovery. And you can find that here in these organizations. One of my gripes, however, is that these organizations have a tendency to have their participants maintain an identity that's related to their illness. So in AA, in NA, hi, my name is so-and-so and I am an addict or I am an alcoholic. Alright, that can be helpful and it's super good to keep it real. Remembering where you came from and the place that you don't want to return to is going to be super duper necessary. However, I have also found in working with many people that constantly attaching that harmful label to the identity is a painful thing. And it sometimes functions as a barrier to recovery. And so I think that it's not necessary to always introduce yourself as an addict or as an alcoholic. Some people have found their way around that by saying, hi, my name is so-and-so and I'm a recovering addict or I'm a recovering alcoholic. That is great. I am so here for putting the recovery aspect first and augmenting your identity so that it more affirms who you are, where you are, and what you're up to. I also think that it's not necessary to add the recovery part or the recovered part either. You can just be so-and-so. Hi, my name is so-and-so. Your name still carries the weight of your triumphs and limitations. You know what they are. Oh yeah. We're starting to get a little smushy. I am pausing on purpose for dramatic effect. Definitely think about the things that I'm saying while I'm being silent. So a few seconds ago, or maybe like a few minutes ago at this point, I talked about the 5 or 6 stages of change. Pre-contemplation, contemplation, preparation, action, maintenance, lapse or relapse. Each of these stages are characterized by a bunch of behaviors that lets me as a provider know where folks are and how they're thinking about their lives within the context of recovery or substance use. So the pre-contemplation phase or stage is the first stage. And in this place, a potential person recovering or a potential addict or what have you is not necessarily thinking that their substance use is a problem. They are at a place before they realize what the issue actually is. And it might take a lot for them to go from pre-contemplation, where they're not even thinking about it, they're using it, it's still kind of fun, or they're still easily able to deflect or deny or not consider the harms and the dangers that are coming from their substance use. It's pre-contemplation. But at some point, something happens in this phase. Maybe it's a number of family members. Maybe a bunch of relationships are really starting to taper off and end. Maybe the 5th or the 4th or the 3rd friend or family member in a row is like, yo, you got some issues right here. You got to do something. And they start to think, maybe I do have to do something. Maybe something is up. And once someone has that insight, we say that they moved into the contemplation phase or the contemplation stage of recovery. And this is where they're thinking about their life and what's actually happening in all these important moments. So insights in the contemplation phase are kind of geared towards, wow, when that happened I was using, or I was inebriated. Wow, when that happened I was using or I was inebriated. Wow, when that happened I was using or I was inebriated. And they start to think about all the different parts of their lives or the times in their lives where they were under the influence of their substance of choice. Following the successful completion of that phase or that stage comes the preparation stage, where the person starts to prepare to let go of their problem behavior or substance. So this might be getting rid of all the bongs or the bowls or the stems. This might mean getting all of the alcohol out of the house. Or contemplating or thinking about all the things that they will have to do in order to actually quit. So preparation might be on purpose trying to remember where they hid their emergency stash, right? Ah man, where did I put that emergency stuff? I'm going to have to get rid of that. The preparation stage is absolutely preparing to change. The action phase is where that stuff actually starts to take place. So this person might be going to meetings. This person might be talking to other people in recovery. This person might be actively choosing to not use anything. This means practicing refusal skills. No thank you, I'm good right now. Or actually, I'm not trying to be doing that with my life at the moment. Or could you please take that someplace else? It's not really good for me. I'm not, in that life anymore. Refusal skills. And they are acting from a place of change. Life is actually being different. Taking different roads home. Avoiding things that trigger cravings, like the corner store. Or that particular part of the neighborhood. Once the action phase has generated a process of recovery, could be a week, right? Once someone's figured out how to stay away from their substance for a week, we can say, all right, let's maintain it. And so we enter the maintenance stage, where we think about, contemplate, write down, and assemble all the things that we will need to maintain sobriety. Assembling the Fab Five. Assembling the Fab Five. Who's your sponsor if you are using self-help? Who is your accountability buddy if you're not using self-help? Who are the people that you trust that you can go to talk about your cravings or your bad days? What are your likely triggers? And how can you manage those to keep your life and your goals in check? Now, for people who do believe in the lapse and the relapse phase, that can happen in the middle of any of those stages. Preparation to contemplation can have a lapse or a relapse. Contemplation to preparation can have a lapse or relapse. Preparation into action can have a lapse or a relapse. Action into maintenance can have a lapse or a relapse. And what happens after a relapse, some say that you pick up over again at the contemplation stage and you start to contemplate what went wrong. What choices did I make that set me up for this unpleasant circumstance? We can say to call this the relapse prevention phase, where we develop relapse prevention plans. Who are the people, places, and things that put me most at risk for relapse? What will I do, or what can I do in those situations? So now that that's pretty jelly, I'm just going to go ahead and add a little bit of this petroleum jelly, this Vaseline, right up in here. Start to mix it up. Mix it up. So this petroleum jelly happens to have cocoa butter in it. So it's going to be good for that skin on your mouth. It's kind of fun. Oh yeah. That should be good. I'm only making enough to put into this little container right here. A lot of folks know about the 12 steps to recovery that are put forward by AA and NA, and some other organizations that, or other groups that work on sobriety. I have the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous here, and I'm going to talk about the first 3. Today, at least. And I will spend next week maybe only on step 4, because that's the doozy that a lot of people in recovery kind of talk about. And then go through the rest of them, as the segment continues. But step 1. We admitted we were powerless over alcohol, that our lives had become unmanageable. So admitting that alcohol has become such a force in your life that you are no longer able to manage it with or without that substance, that's powerlessness right there. And when powerlessness is present, there's nothing you can do to re-exert control over your life. You got to go outside yourself to a place where there is power. So step 2, come to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. Step 3, made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood Him. So that part right there really does, trip a lot of people up. A lot of people are like, God, gender, maybe not. I say that that's an excuse to avoid recovery. God doesn't have to have a gender. You don't have to listen to the him in the statement. You don't have to use that as an excuse to not get the wisdom in these steps. However, some folks do really get hung up on that. And to them I say, cross out him and write her. Cross cross out him and write them. Cross out anything and just keep God. Cross out God and put whatever it is that you acknowledge as more powerful than you that can and will help you. This power that is greater than yourself is compassionate. This power that is greater than yourself is non-judgmental. This power that is greater than yourself is also more powerful than the substance that is hindering you. Who is that, or what is that power in your life? For some, it's children, their families. For others, it is a church. It smells really good. Oh yeah. We cooking now. How can you tell if your life is becoming unmanageable? Well, if you think about your life today, and you think about your life, maybe several weeks, months, or a couple of years ago, what did you have then that you really loved and enjoyed that is missing now? What have you been trying to reconnect with that for whatever reason just isn't? Think about the folks that you are surrounded by. When people have an addiction, when people are really struggling with substance use, the folks around them have a tendency to be those that continue to enable that. Struggling to keep your peace away from that might be an indicator that your life is unmanageable. Intending to go a day, a week, a couple of weeks without your substance and finding that you always go back to it, that is an indicator that life is unmanageable, right? You cannot control your substance. That's powerlessness. You said no, it said yes, and you were like, okay. Unmanageable. How else might you recognize that your life is unmanageable? Bills might not be getting paid. Substance is still in the house. No money to get to work. Substance is still in the house. The petroleum jelly is starting to turn blue. And so once the gummy bear is melted down and the petroleum jelly is all melted down, just pour it gently into its receptacle. You can be a little bit more neat than this, and you can pour it into like an old chapstick tube. You can pour it into like an old like contact lens case that doesn't have the solution in it anymore, and you can like fill both of those up. You don't need an entire jar of petroleum jelly, and you only need like 1 or 2 gummies to make this. It tastes really sweet. It tastes just like the gummy. And, it's a fun little activity for you to do to, surf a craving. It's a good activity to do if you're trying to reconnect with your children after some time away, or you want an activity for you and your grandbabies, or what have you. This is just something that you can do to pass the time to get you from one moment to the next, and you have a little something to show for it. So I hope you found this segment super helpful, and as always, hit me up if you want to talk more about it. Alright, deuces until next week.